So good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the Business Analysis Masterclass. I hope everyone can hear me and see me clearly. Okay, let me note down who all have joined us in today's session. In a second. Just fill the attendance sheet and we'll get started. Okay, done. So guys, in today's session, we are going to deep dive into requirements gathering, right? That's where we stopped last session. So far we have seen business analysis planning, how a BA plans her business analysis activities in a project. And today we are going to see requirements gathering. So just quickly open BA Box and open it in one of the tabs and keep it so that you can follow it as I'm taking you through various sections in BA Box. This is very important, guys. If you keep looking at my screen, later on when you see BA Box, you might have difficulty in understanding the book. So just follow as per, as I'm explaining you the concepts so that you understand which page number, which section of BA Box exactly I'm discussing. Today, we'll also see a whole bunch of requirement gathering techniques, okay, which will be absolutely very vital for each one of you when you start working on projects. Okay. So this particular chapter is something that will be extremely useful for you when you get deployed as a BA in a project. Like I told you, the previous chapter, business analysis planning, is something a senior BA will be handling in the project. Okay. But this chapter is something very crucial to you, both on the job as well as from the exam per se. From the exam per se, also this chapter has a high weightage. So be very attentive, guys, and be responsive on chat when I ask you questions. Let me quickly share my screen. So this is an overview of the elicitation and collaboration chapter in BA Box. So this is chapter number 4, guys, elicitation and collaboration. Now, first question that you must be having in your head is, in a very common terms, we call this requirements gathering, and why does BA Box refer to it as elicitation? So elicitation is a new term that's coined by IABA. They do not believe in calling this process as requirements gathering. Requirements gathering is that something that we commonly refer in projects also. Most of the time, we don't use the word elicitation. Now, IABA coined this term elicitation because they believe that when you gather requirements gathering is more of a discovery process. Why discovery? Because as we discuss requirements with our customers, there will be more questions that emerge out of that discussion. If any of you are already working in a business analyst role, you can understand that you get into a discussion with your customer. There will be the customer gives you a list of responses. Based on those responses, you will have some further questions the next meeting. So as you elicit requirements from the customer, you discover more about those requirements, and these requirements many times keep evolving. And we'll see all of that as we proceed ahead in this bootcamp project. You will see what this exactly means. So in this particular chapter, guys, when I'm showing you specific important areas, I want you to memorize that then and there. I'll do a quick quiz at the end of the session to see how much of this knowledge area you were able to absorb in today's session. Okay. So these are the tasks. Very easy to remember the task. You should be knowing the name of the task anytime that I ask you. First is prepare. Prepare for elicitation. That means you are preparing for a requirement gathering meeting. Okay, and we'll see what are the steps in preparation. I'll do a deep dive into it. So prepare for elicitation, conduct elicitation. Tell me what exactly conduct elicitation might be including. What do you feel conducting elicitation includes? Yes, conduct elicitation means actually the BA is involved in gathering requirements. Confirm elicitation results. This is where the BA is trying to validate all the information she has gathered. She's trying to get it confirmed with the stakeholders. Communicate business analysis information. Here, the BA is trying to inform the customer, inform the stakeholders as to how she is going to communicate all the business analysis information. Now, what do I mean by that? You must be thinking. Now, in a project, a BA creates a lot of documents. Okay? All of these documents that we produce, guys, are called as business analysis information. So make a note of that. Business analysis information includes any document, any diagram, any table, matrices that the BA has produced in the project. That is business analysis information. Even our business analysis plan document is business analysis information. So this task says that the BA will inform the stakeholder that after the elicitation, what is the type of document she's going to produce. If she's going to create some diagrams, what exactly she's going to do. Manage stakeholder collaboration means identifying or finding out a very good way of working with all the stakeholders in a collaborative way. And I'll get deeper into what exactly you mean by working with stakeholders. I'll give you some project examples, some project stories that will make this concept more clear. Okay, so just hold on. Let's do a deep dive into preparation. Now, like I told you, in preparation, a BA is preparing for the requirements gathering meeting. So the first mistake that entry-level BAs make when a requirement gathering meeting is scheduled with the customer to go unprepared for the meeting. What happens when you go unprepared for the meeting? Tell me, guys. Tell me in the chat window, what do you feel would happen? What will be the outcome of that meeting if you go unprepared? Come on, I want the chat window buzzing. Okay, we have chaos. What requirements gathering? What information gathering? Yes, we'll ask random questions and we'll gather wrong requirements. Very good. Less confidence, incomplete. Yes. So this is the first thing that you have to understand, guys. We should never go unprepared for any meeting, especially the requirements gathering meeting. Because we'll have, if you go unprepared, we'll have no clue what to ask the customer, due to which you'll see yourself sitting silently in one corner of the room. Someone else will be driving the meeting and you'll be just watching it. Is that the right way to portray yourself as a BA? Tell me. Yes or no? No. Because as a BA, your key responsibility is requirements gathering. That is the reason you are hired in the project, right? So if someone else is running the show, what is your value in that particular project? When this happens repeatedly, guys, repeatedly in the project, when someone else is running the show and it comes to the attention of the project manager, there are high chances that you will be rolled off from the project very soon. For 1 or 2 meetings, they wouldn't mind because you're new to the project. They might give you some time to come up to speed and things like that. But when they see that you are now in a relatively comfortable position in the project, and still someone else is running the show, then they might take a call to roll you off the project and put you on some other project, or maybe you come on a bench, whatever. This has personally happened with me when I was new in the business analyst role. I didn't know what to ask the customer. I didn't even knew that requirements gathering was solely my responsibility. I always felt I have to do it jointly with the technical team. So technical team asks questions and I sit in the meeting and I take down notes. Very, very wrong way of doing that. After I realized that that's a mistake that I'm making, due to which I'm getting rolled from one project to the other, I'm not getting an opportunity in a very good project where I can utilize my skills. I'm being used. I'm being deployed in projects which do not have much work, much business analyst work. When I realized that, I rectified this mistake. So I started driving the meetings, and that's what you should be doing. Involve your technical team and your project manager only when their presence is required in the meeting. Like I would involve the technical lead if some technically complex solution is going to be discussed in that particular meeting. We need to explain the customer about, maybe the technical team is facing an issue with a plugin or an API, and we need to convince it to the customer that using this technology, this particular feature might not be possible. So I might, in those kind of meetings, I might get my technical lead. She's a better person to explain the technical complexity involved, and not me. Also, in meetings where the customer is expecting some estimates how much time is going to take. Suppose suppose your customer wraps up a meeting saying that, okay, Sajna, in the next meeting, I want you to I want to discuss some estimates. All these features that I've discussed with you, I want to know what are the estimates, how long it's going to take your team to complete it. Now, if that's one thing that he's looking for in the next meeting, then I'll definitely get either my project manager or the technical lead, whoever is the right person estimating in your project. In some project, the estimation is completely driven by the technical team. In some projects, it's the project manager who handles it. Okay. So, on a case-to-case basis, involve the project manager and tech lead, where their support is required for. But when you are solely discussing requirements with the customer, it should be you and the customer across the table. Got my point? Great. I hope this is very clear. What goes into preparation? How we can prepare ourselves so that we are able to elicit requirements correctly. Let me share my screen once again. So in BABOK, you'll see where if you go into the task prepare for elicitation, they have listed these elements. Okay. They have listed 5 elements which they talk about as the 5 steps involved in preparation. And now when you read it in the BABOK terminologies, you might feel this is little difficult to understand, but nothing difficult about it. The first element talks about understand the scope of elicitation. What does that mean? In every requirements gathering meeting, you have to create an agenda and send to the stakeholder. Remember that, guys. Creation of the agenda is very, very important. And what does the agenda do? Tell me, what does the agenda do? I used to create a watertight agenda. Let's discuss a little more about agenda and the importance of it. So we're discussing the first point, okay? Understanding the scope of elicitation. So I used to prepare a very watertight agenda with my customer. Why I call it watertight? Primarily because most of my customers had the tendency to deviate from what we are discussing. Has anyone experienced that? Any BAs, if you have experienced it, type yes. Most of our customers are like that, guys. They will deviate from what is the main topic of discussion. Okay. That was main purpose for creating an agenda, so that my customer has clarity as well as I myself have clarity what is going to be discussed in this meeting. So agenda, yes, agenda consists of all the discussion points. Whatever your meeting is about. If it's a requirement gathering meeting, it will consist of the list of requirements you're going to discuss with the customer. If in that particular meeting, the customer wants to discuss certain production issues, suppose he has set up a meeting with you to discuss certain issues and certain concerns he has, then the agenda includes that, right? The issues and concerns that he wants to discuss. So understanding the scope of elicitation is very, very important. So let me take you to the Business Analysis Hub and show you give me a second, guys. Just I'm pulling out a sample agenda so that we all are very clear. Let me show you this. So this is a sample meeting agenda. Your organization might be having their own template for agenda. If that is the case, then use that template. Suppose your company doesn't have a template for agenda, then you can go ahead and use this. Okay. So I'm going to upload this in the Business Analysis Hub in the requirements documentation template. You will see it after the class. It will be there. Okay. So it starts with the meeting name. You mention the name of the meeting, whatever is the requirements meeting that you have scheduled. Now, location becomes mandatory if you're having a physical meeting with the customer. You're going to either he's coming to your office or you're going to his office to meet him. Otherwise, you can knock off this section. If it's a Zoom call, you don't have to. Or in the location, you can mention a Zoom call. Okay, date, time, and the facilitators. Okay. Also, I would include one more section here. Attendees. So facilitator will be your name as a BA. You're hosting the meeting. If it's a meeting that's called by the customer by any chance to discuss some issues that he has discussed, that he has faced with the application, then of course the name, the facilitator will be his name. Attendees. Attendees will be all the people who are involved in the meeting. Just quickly mention here, the requirements gathering meeting, this will be the name of BA. If there are multiple BAs involved, then you have to put everybody's name in. And this will be the customer stakeholders and the other people who are attending the meeting. Suppose you are also, you have called also your project manager, then put his name also. Then the agenda items. Agenda items, each of these sample text has to be replaced by what you're going to discuss. Now, let's take the example of our bootcamp project that we have, the automobile project, where we are trying to build a portal for this automobile customer where he can buy and sell used cars, can help his customers buy and sell cars. So here, I can mention. So there are 3 features in scope for this particular project: the search engine, the buyer registration form, and the seller registration form. We have not taken all the features of the portal so that you don't get burdened with writing so many requirements. Okay, so we have taken only 3 requirements in scope so that you can just focus on those requirements and write them. So in the agenda, I'll mention start time and end time. So this requirement starts at 9 a.m. Let's say I'm putting just tentative timings so that you can understand. And here, whatever is the name of the feature, you can add over there. You can, if you want, you can add some one-line description also. Let's say you want to give some, there are some people involved from the customer side who doesn't have much idea about what this meeting is all about. So you can add 1 or 2 sentences to explain. This is the original requirement that came from your side about the search engine. So this is what we are going to elaborate on. Search engine functionality, and again, location. If you are meeting up with the customer, then add the location. Otherwise, you can indicate Zoom. Similarly, these timings, each of these timings indicate, if you're having multiple meetings with the customer that particular day to nail down the requirements, then you go on adding it. Otherwise, if you just have one meeting, just knock this off. Knock this off. Just have one meeting. Do that. And action items, very, very important, guys. The action items, what I used to do is, at the end of the meeting, I used to note down what are the questions the customer responded back to, and what kind of questions are open questions he has not yet responded. So I used to mention, let's say, search filters. The customer is not able to give us clarity on the search filters. He's just thinking. I mentioned search filters, TBD means to be decided. Target date by 20th of, I can indicate 20th July. You're planning to close it. And the name of the person concerned, indicate that. Peter. Means it's an action item on Peter and Harry. They need to get back about the information on search filters. There might be certain action items on you as a BA, wherein the customer might have asked you, check whether this particular functionality is feasible or not. Check with your technical team and get back to me. Okay? So you can mention this as bulleted points. Report back with estimates for this feature. Sajna, to check the feasibility of the advanced search engine feature. There was something advanced search engine which was discussed in the meeting. So for which I told the customer that I'll check with my technical team and get back to you. Putting this all together gives the customer a very clear idea about what is going to be discussed in that meeting. So this creating an agenda for the meeting is as simple as this. Add the name of the facilitators, attendees, and keep on adding the agenda items, the topics that are going to be discussed. You can also include an additional, if you feel that your customer is a person who keeps on always deviating from the topic, you can also add additional section which says that the following items are out of scope of our discussion. If you see that certain customers have a tendency to always go out of the scope of discussion and they start discussing about X, Y, Z things. One particular area the customer always keeps nagging you about, what happened to this? You didn't get back to me on that. So you can mention that also as an out of scope section so that he's clear, very clear. Another thing that I used to include in the agenda is, I used to mention a note saying that the requirement gathering questions are also attached in the meeting invite. Please take a look at it. So this is what goes in outlining the scope of the meeting, guys. You as a BA first need to be very, very clear what is the scope of discussion, after which you create an agenda and give clarity to all the people who are attending your meeting. Okay. Now, the second element talks about very important thing. Second element says that as a BA, you should decide which elicitation technique is appropriate for your project. Like I told you, we are going to discuss a bunch of techniques today. Which technique is apt for what kind of project? So selection of elicitation technique is very, very crucial. I will give you a list of techniques that you will be using in your project. These are some widely used techniques in the industry. So I'll come back to this point, okay? Select elicitation technique. How you will select, I'll tell you that. So let's say once you have selected the elicitation technique, that means as a BA, you have identified the interview technique is the best technique for your project. Everyone knows about the interview technique, guys. Interview is when you are having either a face-to-face meeting with your customer in his office or your office, or it can be a Zoom call via a web conference. You are discussing the requirements with them. It is an interview technique. So then in case you have identified one particular technique that you're using, inform your customer about that. That means in this case, I'll tell that requirement gathering will happen via a Zoom call. Or if I'm coming over to his office, I'll indicate I'll be in your office by so and so time. Got this point? Next point is setting up logistics, guys. Setting up logistics, of course, means scheduling the different resources that you need for the meeting. Now, what are the resources that you need for a meeting? Tell me, think about it and tell me in the chat window. What do you think is logistics for a meeting? And why is logistics so important? Yes, logistics is very, very important to avoid last minute chaos. So if it's you're going over to his meeting, you're going over to his office to discuss the requirements, then many of the projects, it so happened that you were working out of the customer's office, and when you are working out of his customer's office, you have to take care of all the logistics. So in one such project, it so happened that we had arranged for the meeting and everything. We had identified the elicitation technique that we're going to use. Everything was informed to the customer. And this particular meeting was supposed to happen as a kickoff meeting, so a lot of senior stakeholders were involved. Now, one thing that went wrong was the logistics. Because the meeting room was not booked in advance before the meeting. One day prior to the meeting, that meeting room had to be booked. Now, this was a rule that was there in their organization. We as a team felt that, most of the, where we used to sit, the cubicles where we used to sit, just beside the cubicles, there used to be a lot of meeting rooms lined up. So every time we pass, we used to see that several meeting rooms are vacant. So we thought just we can dump it into any of the meeting rooms. But on that particular day, guys, when we had scheduled the meeting, unfortunately, all the meeting rooms were booked prior by other teams. And we did not get a place in a single meeting room, due to which that meeting had to be rescheduled. Okay? So if you do not look after logistics, especially if you are working out of customers' organization and you don't know the rules over there, you don't know the policies. When we checked afterwards, the the administration team from the customer's office told us that you have to book all meeting rooms 24 hours prior to the meeting, so that you can ensure that there is availability. Last minute bookings are not allowed. So this was the rule over there, and we were unaware of it. Of course, we should have taken care of it, but this is what happens when you ignore the logistics. So all these resources matter, not only the meeting room, guys. If the meeting requires some additional facilities in terms of, you want a whiteboard to discuss, to write down certain things, ensure that the meeting room has the whiteboard. If in that particular meeting you're going to do a video conferencing with another team, to discuss certain things, there's an offshore team sitting and you need to rope them in at this particular discussion, then you need to ensure that video conferencing facility is there in the meeting room that you are booking. So different communication channels, that whatever you require for the meeting should be there. It is your responsibility as a host to check that. Don't think that I'm in the customer's premises, the customer will arrange for it. If the meeting is happening via a Zoom call, the only thing that we have to take care is that we include the Zoom link along with our meeting invite. Otherwise, what happens? Just as the meeting time comes, everyone reaches the meeting time. People will be sending you emails. Where is the Zoom link? Where is the Zoom link? How do we join this meeting? How do we join? So avoid that chaos. You will be, if there are several stakeholders joining that particular meeting, you will see that each one of them are dropping you messages saying that how do we join this particular meeting? So many stakeholders, remember, guys, from the customer side, they get very frustrated. And if you're not organized with all of this, they'll say that you send a meeting invite, but there is no joining link with it. Don't do this. We're not going to attend meetings, that meeting invites that are sent in this particular way. Setting up logistics, very, very important. Secure supporting material. What does that mean? Go through all the documents that your customer has provided a couple of days before the meeting so that you can prepare. This is also a very crucial step in preparing. When you are, even though you might not be new to the project, but the customer is going to discuss about a new requirement, right? So you might be knowing the existing application in and out, but this requirement that the customer is going to discuss with you is relatively new. So he'll send you a small synopsis of that particular requirement. Now, in the requirement gathering meeting, obviously, it will become more clear. But go through whatever supporting material is required before the meeting starts. And prep the stakeholders. Very important. Prep the stakeholders means, I told you about the question list that you should send the stakeholders, right? So this is preparation of the stakeholders. You as a BA, you are also getting prepared, obviously, when you're preparing the question list. You're preparing the stakeholders also before coming, so that before coming for the meeting, they know what questions will be asked to them. And they can ensure that they have the right answers. This simple step, guys, this simple step that I started following in the project has streamlined my requirements gathering to such an extent I will not be able to tell you that. Because previously I used to prepare the question list, I used to keep it with me. I used to not share it with the stakeholders. I said, okay, I'll get into the meeting and ask them questions there and get the responses. In most of the cases, what used to happen is when you ask them questions, there are some questions that they don't have answers to. Many times it happens that you ask the question, ask around 15 questions to your customer, out of which he gives you a response to 8 questions. Remaining, he says that I'll get back to you about it. And then that runs in a loop. You have to schedule another meeting to close those items. So when I used to schedule meeting, 2 days prior to the meeting, I used to send out the meeting invites. Along with the meeting invites used to be this question list. And when the stakeholders come prepared for the meeting, there are very lesser chances that they will say that, we'll get back to you. So it reduces the occurrence of those open questions that used to, be there after the requirements gathering meeting. So before when I did not share question list, I had several questions as open questions, and they should, I should follow up. That follow-up cycle becomes very tedious for a BA, guys. What I'm trying to tell you is different tips and tricks by which you can, you don't have to put effort in following up and closing up those questions. So you reduce the amount of questions where they don't have answers. So prepare them, tell them what kind of requirements gathering you're going to use, requirement gathering technique you're going to use, and what are the questions for which you are seeking answers. Now, what I want you to do right now is we are going to create a question list. Question list for our bootcamp project, which, if you're working with this particular client, will be the ideal question list that you will prepare for a requirement gathering session with this. Okay, so let us go to Business Analysis Hub, guys. Quickly log into Business Analysis Hub. Once you log into Business Analysis Hub, click on the course bundle, requirement documentation formula, requirement documentation templates are there, right? All the templates are uploaded in this bundle. So in this bundle, you'll not find any videos, guys. You'll find only templates which you can use in your projects. So here, go to the second section, requirements, and there is a requirement elicitation template here. Just download this document, and I'm going to show you how we can use it in the project. Start this activity with me. So I've downloaded the template, and this is the template that you'll see on your machine. Is everyone with me? Have you opened this template? I'll just wait for 2 minutes before I start this activity. Tell me yes once you have opened this. Wait for 2 minutes so that everyone opens this and is in sync with me. Okay, great. So in this template is used for writing down your questions as well as collecting all responses from the customer. It's a dual, it's a template that's used for dual purpose. So you can start off by indicating the meeting date and time and name of the customer, who is a BA, the meeting objective, then the scope of discussion again. Okay. So agenda is separately sent to the customer. There we have outlined the scope. In this collection template, also you can indicate the scope of discussion that was there. Now, in the template, you will see that the questions, there are some sample questions added in the template. Sample questions are for the search engine. Okay. This is a typical search engine, just like the Amazon search engine, wherein we are asking a bunch of questions for the customer to understand the features and how exactly this particular search engine should work. So what I'm going to do is right now, in our scope of work, let me just go to the BRD and show you that. In the bootcamp project, what is our scope of work? If you open the BRD that I had shown you on the first day, the business requirements talk about pre-requirements, search, registration for buyers, and registration for sellers. Okay. So this is our scope. Out of this, I don't want to do the search. Search becomes repetitive. So let's say I'm discussing with my customer how the registration for buyers should work. Okay. So this is my scope of discussion, registration for buyers. I'm picking up this requirement list. And let's see how I will create questions for this. So I'm going to show you how you're going to use this template in the project. So my scope of discussion, keep on filling this template along with me, guys. I have to enable editing, I believe. Just a minute. My scope of discussion is registration for buyers. Now you can always take a look at these sample questions, how I've created. In my case, I don't need it. I'll just tell you how logically I arrive on certain questions. First, I need to change the name of the feature. I'm not discussing the search engine. I'm going to discuss the registration. Registration. We call it buyer registration. I'm just going to knock this off. That you'll see most of the questions in this template that I have put in. I've tried to use the 5WH formula. 5WH formula creates much more clearer questions. There's no hard and fast rule that you have to use only the W's. 5WH means W's, the when, where, why, what, and H talks about how. Okay, but there's no hard and fast rule. You can frame your own questions. I have seen that beginner BAs, when they frame their own questions, they make it a little difficult for the customer to understand the question. That is the reason I insist that you follow the 5WH formula. Let me just knock this out. So right now in this particular template, I just have the category names. First, the business-oriented questions. So what are some of the business-oriented questions that come to your mind? When I talk about business-oriented question, for this buyer registration, I need to know what exactly is the benefit of this feature. My first question comes, is the benefit registration. Which means I'm asking my customer, why does a buyer need to register on the website? Obviously, registration should have some benefits for him, right? He might be getting some additional facilities due to which he has to register. Otherwise, who'll go and register? People like to just access the website just like that without entering their details, right? We need to understand what is the benefit behind getting the buyer registered. Okay. So that's the first, understanding the benefit behind it. Then we can understand who are the users of this feature. Now, users of the feature, you might feel obviously buyers are the user. Buyers will be using this particular registration form, but we need to understand from the customer this. We should not make assumptions, okay? Because in this particular case, the customer might tell you, in my case, the buyer can be an individual, like just like you and me, purchasing a vehicle from the website, or it can be also companies, companies who come and buy vehicles in a bulk so that they can use it for their employees, isn't it? That means we are looking at two types of users, corporates as well as individuals in that case, isn't it? Is that a Balbon movement, guys? BO, type BO in the chat box about, if you are understanding how these questions are shaping into. Yes, many questions you might feel, what's so? Obviously, the user is a buyer, but you need to understand when you say buyer, what does that word mean, buyer? The customer, when you ask the customer tells there are corporate buyers, there are individual buyers. So that rings a bell. Okay, we are looking at two different categories of buyers here. And when we further understand what are the broader categories of buyers, then we can understand what are the demographics. When I talk about demographics, you can put it in a simple term. Would like to know the profile of the user. Okay. This also gives us a very good idea about what kind of features this particular user will like on the website. So when I say a profile of the user, this includes understanding the age range of the people visiting the website. What is the range of so the customer might say, well, my buyers are typically of the age between 30 to 50. Okay, that's the large chunk of buyers that we get, 30 to 50, and it's we get more of male buyers than female buyers. He might give you that insight. And demographics means understanding the complete profile of the users. Okay? So it includes age, the gender, the interest of the person, the kind of educational background he has, and everything of his interest level and all of that. So this question, guys, it might not be applicable to all projects. Remember that. Here we are talking about a web portal. It becomes very, very essential as a BA for you to understand the profile of the user. Now, if it's an internal application, this question might not apply. So use these questions judiciously. Guys, just don't do a copy paste in your projects. What are some of the other questions come to your mind? Come on, guys, help me. You think about, are you getting some business-oriented questions? There were some typical questions I already put for the search engine in terms of the business goals and all. Will that apply here? What are the business goals? Good point. That is correct. Now you guys are thinking, what are the challenges associated with the existing registration process? Why am I asking this question, guys? What are the challenges associated with the existing registration process? Now, we know that the existing registration process is completely manual. A buyer needs to come to the office and fill in a paper-based form with all his details, after which the sales team contacts them. It's a complete offline process. Okay. We need to understand further what are the challenges where the customer, what are the elements of the registration process which the customer is not liking at all, the buyers, so that when we are doing it in an automated way, we take care that we are not bringing in the same problems in the automated solution. Is that clear? Whatever are the challenges, those challenges should all get addressed in your automated solution. Okay. So a couple of business questions we have come up. Now let's think about user action questions. Okay. Why automation is required? I can frame it as, what is your end goal behind the automation of this feature? Or your business goal, you can, instead of end goal, you can also put the business goal. Okay? So you can frame it using your own words. Just give me a second, guys. Sorry about that. Okay, so we put in some business questions. Let's come to user action questions. Here we are talking about what kind of actions a user needs to perform on the portal in order to register himself as a buyer on the website. Okay. The first question that comes to your mind: is it mandatory for all buyers to register? Right? Is it mandatory? I want to know if it's a mandatory feature or not. When should the buyer registration, let me reframe this, when should the user be prompted for registration? Okay. So what I'm doing using this question, I'm trying to understand what is the trigger event. Obviously, when he comes to the portal, it's an open portal, right? Anybody can visit the portal. For visiting the portal, you don't need a registration. But we need to understand when to prompt the user for registration. Understand. So I'm asking all user action questions where an action will be triggered from the user. Next thing. What is the next level of questions that... so here, keep on adding rows, guys, as the question list keeps on expanding. What are the other user action questions? Come on, think and help me. Very obvious question that is coming the next. Think about it and tell me. And then we will see what responses the customer gives to each of these questions. I hope each one of you are with me filling in this sheet. Very, very crucial for your project also, guys. What's the next level of question? Think about it. What data has to be captured in the registration form? Isn't it? We need to know what data has to be captured. And when the customer might give you n number of features, n number of data elements, data to be captured, say 10 different data elements to be captured. We need to understand which of it is mandatory and which is non-mandatory. of the above, which data is absolutely mandatory. Enter. Okay, so I came up with some user action questions. What else are the user action questions that you can think of? Tell me. I'm talking about when I take user action, guys, let me repeat. I'm talking about what kind of data entry or what kind of clicks the user will make on the screen. Just think about that. A user is trying to register in this particular portal in order to purchase a car, purchase a vehicle. One question: do all category of buyers so this question will be applicable, guys, if the customer has indicated that there are different category of buyers. So all category of buyers need to register on the portal, or suppose a customer has told you that there are two categories: individual and corporates. Corporates registration we'll handle it offline. Okay, we'll handle it offline. There's no need to do it online. Then accordingly, that's the reason for this particular question, to understand if the portal is catering to both type of users. Okay. So this is all about data entry and understanding what is mandatory and what is not mandatory. Okay. Then we come to the next one. System response, which means what should happen after the buyer has filled in all the data. What is the response the response that should be sent to buyer upon registration? What response should be sent? Does he get immediate access to his account? What is the process by which his account is activated? What I'm trying to do here, guys, what am I trying to understand is what is the behind the scene process. Okay, this is system response, understand. So that means your buyer will not be able to see this particular process. So in user action, I put in all the questions which is pertaining to the user, what the user will be doing on the portal. Now, in the system response questions, I'm trying to put in all the things that the system will do behind the scene. Okay, what is the response that should be sent to the buyer upon registration? So the customer might send him an automated email saying that thank you for registering on our website. Your account will be activated, or your account will be activated within 24 hours, or your account is now active, whatever they want. Which brings us to the next question: what is the process by which the account is activated? Now you'll see different portals handle account activation in different ways. In some portals, as soon as you register, they send you an email on your email ID for verification. Has anyone seen that? They send you an email for verification just to see whether you are an authentic user or you're just entered some fake email ID. So what happens is the most of the portals send you a verification email, and there is a link included in that verification email. You click on that link, only then your account is activated. That means the system has that's a way in which the system is validating that you are a proper authentic user. It's not a fake profile that you have created on the website. Okay, so that is the reason I'm asking this question. What is the process by which the account will be activated? So the customer might give you the entire process, and you also can give him suggestions. Okay, this is how most of the portals handle it. So let's do it in this particular way. Okay. So what is the process by which the account is activated? And I showed you the verification process that's followed in most of the portals. If he would like to bring in a different process, he will tell you that. So does he get immediate access to his account, which means immediately as soon as he registers and he finishes the verification, can he log into the website and start accessing in his account? That's what I'm trying to ask. What are the additional features a buyer will have access to? So the system will provide access to post registration. There should be some purpose for registration, right? Like I said. Now, in this particular project that we worked, any user could come to the portal and search for vehicles. Search was open for everyone. There's no need for registration for search. Okay? But if a buyer had a serious intent of buying a particular vehicle, like he sees for a couple of days he views that vehicle and checks out the details, and he says, "Yes, I would like to do a test drive of this vehicle." So once he likes the vehicle, obviously the next step is to do a test drive, right? For him to book a test drive, he has to have an account with us. So here the customer will indicate that he will have access to features like booking a test drive or scheduling a test drive. Finally, buy the vehicle that he likes, make the payment online, support from our staff. So they'll give you a list of features that they will have. These are the added benefits that he gets upon registration. So this is the system response questions, guys. And then we come to the non-functional questions. Non-functional questions include all questions about performance. So my question for performance would be like, what is the expected load time for buyer registration? How many buyers currently we have on the repo? In order to understand how many concurrent users will be accessing. We can even reframe this as how many users will be accessing this feature at the same time. So this will allow my technical team to plan out the load, the peak load. Okay. Then you can create questions for which browsers the feature should be compatible with. And devices it should work on. You can put a question for that. Now, browser compatibility and devices in most of the projects, this is handled on the project level only. So your portal, you'll decide with the customer, all pages on the portal should be compatible with Chrome and Safari browser. It should be compatible with devices like Android and iPhone and iPad. So that will happen on the project level. If it happens on the project level, then you don't need to mention it in non-functional requirements per feature. You don't need to iterate. Now, transition requirements for this particular buyer registration will include understanding their current buyer database and how the migration will be planned. What is the number of buyers? How are their details stored? How should the same be migrated within the system? And will the migration include creation of accounts for all these users, all these existing buyers? That means many times a customer might say that these are our old buyers that are there in the system. When you're doing the migration, do one thing, create a dummy account for all of them. I don't want my old buyers to go and go to the portal and ask them to create an account once again. They have already given us the information. Asking them to do it 2 times will be too much of a headache for them. So in that case, I can tell my technical team, when you're migrating the buyer data, ensure that you're creating an account for them also, using their email address and things like that. Create an account, and then we will email the account details for them. These are some transition questions. Now, questions related to the database and all are not functional questions. Those are technical questions. Okay. And for where the data should be stored and all, in this case, your customer will say, you are the technical team, so you have to decide where and how the data will be stored. Okay. So data storage details and everything will be decided by your technical team, and it has to be conveyed to the customer. Okay. It will not come from the customer. So we are a technical partner, right, in this particular project. So we will ask them, we will try to get in this requirements gathering meeting, we'll try to get complete knowledge of what they're expecting out of this feature. How exactly to implement that feature is totally our headache. We can inform the customer, this is how we are storing your data, this is how we are managing your data, we can inform, but not asking them technical questions. If a particular customer has some specific requirements, that if they tell you, some customers are a little technical in nature, so they come and tell you, this is how we want your repository database to be arranged. This is a norm that we follow in all projects in our organization. This project also should follow. Then that's a special requirement. Okay, so that doesn't happen in all the projects. Then in that case, you can get into the discussion of database and things like that. You can get your tech lead in that case, how the database should be structured. So that happens case to case basis. Did everyone get an idea about how to frame questions? Very, very important. I hope this is very clear. And when we are asking these questions to the customer, guys, when you're asking the questions, just ask the questions one after the other. Don't categorize, don't mention the name of these categories. That, don't tell that I'm first asking you business questions. After that, I will ask you user action questions. These categories your customer will not understand. I have created these categories so that my students, so the creation of questions for the student becomes relatively easy. So this is our in-house technique, not known to the outside world. So always when you're framing questions, first think about all the things which are business related as to how it is going to help business, and come up with a list of questions for that. The second sequence in which you have to think is user input. What are the things that user will do on that screen? And I need to get it confirmed with the customer. Second, the third, how the system is going to behave in response to that registration. And then comes a non-functional and transition. So I have just talked in this particular list of questions in the essence of time. You can expand more on these questions, okay? It doesn't mean that this particular requirement gathering meeting will end with just these questions. Many times it so happens when we ask these questions, we get further questions in our mind. Okay, the customer has asked us to capture data in this particular format. So then that gives rise to one more question as to how are they currently doing it. So let's understand all of that, we'll say. Like, let me give you an example. Suppose in response to this particular question, what data has to be captured in the registration form? The customer says that capture the personal details of the buyer, then capture his budget, the tentative budget that he has, approximate budget that he has to buy the vehicle, and his preference in terms of vehicles. Okay. So the next question that you will have in response to this will be personal details. In personal details, what exactly do you want us to capture? The name, the email address, the phone number, and something else. Do you want something else? Is that required for your reporting purposes? Ask them this question in personal details, what exactly to be captured. When they say you also need to capture preferences of the buyer, what are the preferred vehicles he likes? He likes a Porsche, Mercedes. Ask them how many preferences he can enter, right? You need to check, you need to give, the buyer needs to give you a list, but how long that list can be? Say, the customer might say that he can give you 3 preferences or 5 preferences. We accordingly, my technical team can code that please, out of the following list of vehicles that we have in the repository, please select your preferred vehicle, and you can make only 5 selections. Isn't it? Is this getting more clearer, guys? How the requirement gathering has to be driven? So for each and every question, depending upon the client's response, you might have several questions that pop up in your mind. Everyone with me? Type yes in the chat box. I want a yes from everyone before we proceed. Correct. That's right. That's nice. That's nice. So what I want you guys to do. Now, I have covered registration for buyers. Okay. I want each one of you to use this as a template and cover the registration process that is used for sellers. Okay. Seller registration is going to be slightly difficult. Of course, they will be capturing details of the seller, but there are some more elements that will come into picture. Don't think that both of them are registration, so they are same. No. So let me tell you, let me give you a little more information about seller registration so that you can articulate some more questions. Let me take you to that BRD. So if you go to the BRD, this one-line statement, two sentences tell you that system should provide an interface for collecting seller information, including his personal details, his vehicle details, images, etc. Now we don't know what that etc. is. We need clarity on that. Vehicle info is displayed on the website only post approval by the next tech verification team. This information alone can give rise to several questions, isn't it? You need to understand first what data has to be captured, personal details, his vehicle details, then the images of the vehicle there. Of course, he has to upload a lot of images of the vehicle. With respect to vehicle details, what kind of documents he needs to submit, and what is a verification process? Now, understand, guys. With respect to a buyer, as soon as he comes and registers and verify his email address and all, you can activate his account. That's not a problem. Okay. But when it comes to seller, they are going to post a vehicle on your website. That means their vehicle will be advertised on this company's website. Now, there are several complexities involved in this because it might be that a particular vehicle has some criminal record. It was used for some criminal purposes. Or maybe that vehicle has been in an accident before. These are all very vital. To know the history of that vehicle is very vital. These are certain things. If the company does not verify this and just allows the seller to advertise his vehicle on the portal, later on, let's say one particular buyer picks it up, and if there is some police inquiry, then it is a bad name for the company, saying that the company is listing these kind of vehicles which were used for a criminal purpose or something like that. So verification process, we need to understand what it is in detail, and post verification, how the seller account will be activated. What is the timeline by which the account gets activated, the seller's account gets activated, because it's not going to be as easy as the buyer that he gets immediate access, because a lot of background verification has to happen. So while that verification is happening, what is the communication that goes out to the seller to inform him about what stage in verification is vehicle currently in? Understand? So it's not the same thing as registration for buyers. I want you guys to work on this assignment, complete this RET template with registration for sellers. Some of the questions will be pretty standard. Don't worry about that. You can copy paste those questions. But like I told you, some of the questions will be pretty specific to sellers. Now, so with that, we finish preparation. Okay, preparation for elicitation. Now, the next task that we have is conduct elicitation, which all of you told me that conduct elicitation means the BA is trying to run the show. She's trying to run the requirements gathering meeting. What all a BA needs to keep in mind when she is doing a requirements gathering meeting. First of all, as an input, the elicitation plan comes from the previous task. That means now in the real projects, we don't create something called as elicitation plan and all. It's a headache to create a plan and everything. What Bebok is referring to it is the plan. They're referring to the plan as the meeting agenda and all the source documents all put together. That is the plan for elicitation. So if you read it, it includes the logistics, the scope of activity, and all the sources that you will be using. So don't think that this is a separate document that you prepare. So conduct elicitation is done using when you are doing a elicitation activity, two things you have to keep in mind. So this is the smallest task in WebOp, guys. Only two elements: guide the elicitation activity and capture elicitation accounts. So outcomes. Capture elicitation outcomes. But tell me, what do you understand by this? Anyone can tell me. What does guide elicitation activity mean? Something that I just told you. First point, guide elicitation activity. It means that as a BA, you have to facilitate the meeting. And facilitating meeting means ensuring that the customer does not digress from the topic. Like I said, in many of the projects, see, the first preventive measure that we take is to float an agenda so that the customer does not digress from the topic. Many times you'll see, even if the agenda is all discussed with them and all, then also they have a tendency to digress. So that is where our facilitation skills come into picture, guys. Okay, so we have to facilitate the meeting in such a way that, say, starting the meeting by reiterating the agenda. So many BAs feel the agenda is sent in the meeting in white, right? Why do I need to reiterate it? But it makes a lot of difference, guys. Start the meeting by reiterating the agenda so that everyone sitting in the meeting room is aware that this is the scope of our discussion. Then after you mention the agenda, you will see after some time of discussion, you might have called the meeting to discuss about the search engine. They will go ahead and discuss about the seller registration, or they might discuss about how scheduling of test drive is going to be done. So bring them on track. Okay? I used to say very politely to my customer, I understand your concern on that, on the scheduling front. I understand your concern. What I plan to do is I'm going to have a separate meeting with you to discuss the scheduling part and all of that. Let me bring you back to this meeting because this is currently out of scope of our discussion. So let us first finalize the search engine, and then we'll move to scheduling. Okay? So very politely do that. This is facilitation skills that we talk about. Whenever your customer digresses from the main topic, every time get him back on track. That is required. That is guiding the elicitation activity. Capture elicitation outcomes is something that you guys have just told me. Either you record the meeting, as capturing elicitation outcomes means either as a BA you take notes with a pen and paper or on your laptop, or if you are recording the meeting, pay attention, guys. If you are recording the meeting, you have to take explicit permission from your customer to do that. Don't start recording before you ask him for a permission. Most of the customers have very strict contracts signed with the organization, which states that there should be no recordings done without our approval. If you want to record, mention that. Take the customer's approval prior to recording. So that is conducting of elicitation activity. Now, today's session, we are going to discuss a bunch of techniques. Something very, very important for you on the project, so be very, very attentive. If you remember the first slide, I left one particular point where we said, let me take you back to that slide. Yes, the second point where I said select elicitation techniques. I said, let's park it for the time being. I will come back to this point. So that's what we are going to learn now. How does a BA select an appropriate elicitation technique? There are various ways to do that. And these are the highlighted ones. The red ones are something that I'm going to discuss right now. And you are going to take notes of this, okay? Let me go to my whiteboard. or to some of you, the whiteboard is not visible. So let me write it in a Word document itself. If anybody has problem viewing the whiteboard, just start a Word document and mention this. The techniques that we are going to discuss. The first technique, document analysis technique. Anyone can tell me what document analysis is all about? Very, very easy. Each one of you, even if you're not worked as a BA, has used document analysis extensively. Tell me, what is document analysis? Analysis of a document means what? This is the first starting point for requirements gathering, right? This technique, using this technique, you will read all the source documents provided by customer or your tech team. So whenever you're reading any document, guys, even when you are preparing for the ECB exam, you're referring to WebOC, right? You're reading through all the information that is there in WebOC. You're memorizing it. What you're doing is you are using the document analysis technique. Analyzing a document means reading through the information and just picking up relevant information from that. That's exactly what we do with our customer documents also. There will be a lot of garbage in those documents which we may not know. They might be talking about some very, very old systems that they had previously used and all. Document analysis ensures that we remove all that unwanted information and just focus ourselves on the items that are of our interest. That's document analysis. Yes, understanding context from the information that's available. So this is the first thing that you need to do, guys, once you're deployed in a project, document analysis. Then comes interface analysis. What does this technique help you with? Interface analysis is again something a BA uses when she starts off on a new project. What you will try to get immediate access to the application, right? And then you will start your interface analysis. This means using this technique, what you're going to do is studying the user interface of the application. That means if I say, if Peter is a BA in the project and I tell him that, okay, Peter, so starting from today, you are going to work on one of the crucial systems in our organization, the customer onboarding application, which is used by some of our major banks, some of the major banks here, to onboard their customers into the system. Now, Peter is very new to the banking domain. Is where he has not even heard about this application. So I've just given him a gist saying that this application is used to onboard new customers. Banks use this application to onboard new customers. Now, once Peter is onboarded into the project, is deployed on the project, he will read through all the documents to understand what are customer onboarding systems and how they work. The next thing that he will do is he will speak to me as a project manager and tell Sajna, I want immediate access to the application so that I can log into the application and see the screens and how those screens are going to work. What is the data you're capturing and how the flow of the application goes ahead. So that is interface analysis. So what Peter is trying to do here is he is studying the interface of the existing application in order to figure out how that application is going to work. So let me end this with this. Figure out what data is captured and how is it, what is the behavior of the application. Next thing that he will do is he will also try to understand external interfaces if the application has one. When I say external interfaces, certain applications talk to other applications also. That means there might be other applications connecting to your application for some information. It must be pulling out some information. To get some information. Let me give you a very simple example. You will see that most of the websites now have option 3-4 options for registration. Either you can use your email address to register, or you can use any of your social media handles. So you can log in using your Facebook account, LinkedIn account, or Twitter account. So they give you that option. So what happens the moment you click on sign up using Facebook? The moment you click on sign up using Facebook, this particular portal will go and connect with the Facebook database, and it will extract all your information from the Facebook database and automatically create an account for you. What's happening is your application is taking information from another application and creating an account. So that's an external interface. Got it, guys? This concept is clear. So interface analysis not only includes understanding the UI of the current application, but also understanding other apps that are involved. Then comes our interview technique, which everyone knows. I've already spoken about interview technique extensively, so I'm not getting into details. Then there is a technique called as focus group meeting. Anyone knows about focus group meetings? Anyone can tell me how do focus group meetings happen? Type in the chat window, guys. Focus group meetings, as the name suggests, happens with focused participants. Okay? You have very focused participants in this meeting. That means I will use this technique when I want to invite a group of subject matter experts for a particular meeting to get their opinion of view about what features should be added to the product. So in focus group meeting, I will specifically identify individuals who might add value to the meeting. So I don't go ahead and randomly invite anybody. So it's very focused. So we have a focused set of audience for that particular meeting. And that's why it's called a focus group meeting. And it is focused on one particular topic. Okay? Please understand, every requirements gathering that you do will not be to discuss a particular feature. Sometimes we start the requirements gathering when the customer is totally confused about what features has to be added. He has no clue. Now in the bootcamp project, automobile project, I gave you 3 features that he would like to develop. Let's say this guy is totally blank. He doesn't know what features to be developed. And he is absolutely not a technology guy. So in that case, where the customer doesn't have a starting point, you are supposed to give him a starting point, right? So you can call a focus group meeting with some key stakeholders from his organization, people who have very good knowledge of that automobile business. And you can also have your tech lead in that particular meeting and try to brainstorm. You can mix 2 techniques together. Remember that always you can use a mixture of a couple of techniques. So call them for a brainstorming and keep this more of a focused meeting, focused on a particular topic, that at the end of the meeting that we should be able to come up with at least 10 features for this product. That's focus group meeting. Then we have meetings conducted in the workshop format. Workshop is, I believe, is clear to most of you. What are workshops? Nowadays, we have music workshops, we have yoga workshops. What is the purpose of having a workshop? In a workshop, there are some experts involved, and then there is the participants, normal participants. So you can again use this workshop technique where you want participants to be involved in a particular discussion. When I say that, let me give you a project scenario where we used workshop. In this particular project, what we did, we gathered the requirements. Now, this was a compliance application that we handled for a bank. So here, we gathered requirements using the interview technique. We started with the interview technique. We spoke to some ground level staff, the compliance team that's involved in starting the compliance audits, the ground level staff. We involved them in an interview discussion, 4 to 5 people in a discussion, and got the requirements, high level requirements from them. After which, in order to get it validated, whether these are the correct requirements, we thought that it is a good idea to reiterate this with their senior management. So we called the compliance leaders, though they were the experts in the workshop, and we made a presentation. We showed them that this is our understanding of your requirements. This is what we gathered from your ground level staff. The staff was also there; they were the participants, and we had the compliance leaders who were validating constantly as we are going through the requirements. We ran it in a workshop format. Now, in a workshop format, in certain projects, certain activities are also run. That is also permissible in workshop. If you feel there is a need for a particular activity to be completed at the end of the workshop, you can involve, you can do that also. This is a typical usage of a workshop. When you have a group of stakeholders from whom we have to gather requirements or validate requirements, confirm the requirements, use a workshop mode. Then we have survey or questionnaire technique. Very, very important. I'm not sharing my screen, I forgot. So the next technique that I mentioned is survey or questionnaire technique. What happens in this technique? Obviously, you create a survey and float it to the users. And when to use this technique, remember, when the user base is very huge. In one particular project, it so happened when we started discussing the problem area of the customer, when we were doing the need assessment, we figured out that the senior management did not have a complete data of what are the challenge areas. So they gave us some information saying that, our customers are really annoyed about these particular aspects of our service. This is where the product is lacking. They gave us some inputs about it. But however, they told us that you will get more detailed information when you query our users, the actual users of our product. So their user base typically, now this was an internal application that was used by the bank. So it was used across different geographies. So the user base was around 150 to roughly around 150 to 200. Now, there's no way we can talk to 150, 200 people, right, to understand what are the drawbacks of the existing application. It's just simply not possible. So the first step that we did, we floated a survey across these user base to understand what are those features in the product which they do not like, which they want to be changed. Is the performance a concern? So the survey had some very pointed questions, which can give us insight about what exactly is going wrong with the current application. So we were expected to build a new application for the customer, but in order to build a new application, we need to understand what's going wrong with the old one, right? So that we don't carry forward the same problems. So use a survey technique, guys. When the user base is quite huge, you will not be able to use interview technique. Interview technique, you can use. I'll say that interview technique is effective for 1 to max 5 users. Okay, there's no thumb rule that you can't involve more than 5 users in an interview meeting. But in my personal experience, I've seen when we have exceeded more than 5 customer stakeholders, there is total chaos in the meeting room. Everybody is talking about something else. Those kind of those initial meetings used to be very non-productive meetings with the customer. That is the reason I created this thumb rule for myself that if I'm using the interview technique, it has to be with a closed set of users, not more than 5. I'm not including more than 5 because it becomes difficult for me to handle them. These guys go on discussing something else, and at the end of it, we don't get anything out of this meeting. And the last technique that we will discuss is observation. Anyone can tell me what is observation? What does the name suggest? Observation. Observation technique. What do you think you're trying to do as a BA using this technique? And when will you use it? Come on, guys. So what is the English meaning of observation? English meaning of observation means you're observing something, right? The observation technique is used when the client-side process is rather complex and lengthy. Okay, keep that in mind. What we do using this technique is We don't have any meetings. Observation is not about having meetings with the customers. To understand that, we observe the client side process and take notes. Technique is, like I said, is used when the process is quite lengthy or complex. So in one particular project, like this was for a manufacturing customer, let me tell you. The customer was, we started this project using the interview technique. So what I'm telling you, how we have in several projects made improvisation depending upon our experiences. So when we started using the interview technique, we figured out after one or two meetings that we are not able to understand what the customer is actually telling us. That means this was a manufacturing customer. So, and he was explaining us the end-to-end process about how his product is actually manufactured in the factory outlet. So if any of you have seen those documentaries in Netflix where they show you, there are different documentaries which show how a particular product is manufactured in the factory outlets. There are documentaries for cheese production, how cheese is actually produced. Even we get to see in the Discovery Channel and things like that, cheese production and jams, how the packaging and everything is done, how they load it in, how they dispatch the final products and everything. Has anyone of you seen those kind of documentaries? Type yes if you have seen. Great. If you're not seen, go ahead and see. There are several documentaries coming up in the Discovery Channel, the History Channel. You'll find some in Netflix also. See one of such documentary. It's very interesting to see how exactly the products that you and me consume. It might be jam, jelly, or it might be cheese. How actually it's manufactured in the factory outlets. So you will see that most of the since these products are created in large volumes, because the customer base is naturally very huge, right? So these companies have a large customer base to cater to, and that's the reason the products are manufactured at a large volume. So you will see their factory outlets, the entire process is automated. So you will see if it's a cheese manufacturing, cheese production outlet, you'll see that there are huge furnaces that's churning the milk, and even the temperature of the milk is regulated. You'll see that there is temperature flashing in the on the top of the furnace, which says that okay, milk is being churned in this particular temperature and all of that. Very, very interesting to see that entire process. What we were doing for this particular customer is we were developing one group of applications that is responsible for monitoring the quality of the final output of that particular product. Now, in order for us to develop that one set of applications that will be checking the quality and reporting it to their staff, their ground level staff, so for per batch, there are quality reports that are produced that go and, that's reviewed by their staff to see that each and every batch that is produced is having the same quality, the same the color and everything. The color, the texture, the quality and everything is absolutely as per the company standards. So this set of application was supposed to check all of that, generate reports, and put it in the upload it in the repository so that the staff can review just before dispatching. They can review and say all good. For us to develop that application, we need to understand what kind of data should be sent to their staff and all of that, right? Lots of the data which the customer was explaining, we were not able to understand because that entire process was so lengthy, the product being manufactured, and so many applications involved. And our application was just one piece of the puzzle. So after one or two discussions, we figured out that we are not going anywhere. So we request to the customer that can we come to your factory outlet, be there for a couple of days and actually see this happening. We'll be in a better position to understand how we need to build a new set of applications. Okay. So after which we got the permission, we got our ID cards to enter their outlets, and we could see the entire process happening. And so what we were doing there, guys, we were not having any meetings with the stakeholders. We were just observing the process and taking down notes as to how the process is working. That is observation. Amen. Everyone clear on this? Is this useful, guys? Useful for you to understand what technique should be deployed in what kind of projects? See, WebOp will give you a list of techniques. Okay, that last technique, that last chapter of techniques itself will overwhelm you, saying that which technique to use when. But in my master classes, I tell you exactly when to use what technique. Okay? You should be very clear on that. Hmm. Many BAs, when they start their journey, they feel interview is the only technique to gather requirements. That's not correct. Depending upon the nature of your project, depending upon the complexity involved, depending upon the user base, you can always pick up a new technique that will be apt for your project. Like I told you, when the user base was very huge, 150 users, I can't call them for an interview discussion. Interview is totally out of scope. I can't do an interview session. I floated a survey. When the process was lengthy and complex, I told my customer I would like to use the observation technique. When the requirements had to be gathered from a small set of users, 3 to 4 users, 5 users, I went ahead with an interview technique. And each of these techniques, remember, you can always deploy a mixture of techniques. Use in several projects, we use interview, workshop, and we also use brainstorming. So there's no hard and fast rule. If you're using interview, use interview throughout the project. Nothing like that. So we have discussed about different techniques you can deploy. 7 different techniques discussed today. I hope each one of you have taken notes. Notes, type N in the chat box if you have taken notes. How many of you have typed yes, notes, yes? Great, great, great. So let's pause over here. After this, I'm going to take you to the next level of tasks in elicitation and collaboration. Please understand, important point that some of you are raising questions about the domain per se. Let me answer that. You don't need to worry about whether the questions that you ask in the requirement gathering questions will it be different in a particular domain. See, the business analysis principles are general across all the domains. They apply across all the domains. So the principle, understand the concepts, understand the principles. I'm making you do it through various activities so that you can understand how exactly it has to be done to the project. Business analysis is not specific to a particular domain. Everything that you are doing in this bootcamp project for this automobile customer, you can do it for a banking customer, you can do it for an insurance customer, you can do the same for a healthcare or a manufacturing customer. The process remains the same. The questions obviously will differ depending upon what feature you're developing for that customer. So the questions will be specific to that feature, obviously. So the applications differ from domain to domain. That is the reason in WebOp, there is no mention of any particular domain. If you look at the last chapter of WebOp, perspectives, they talk about how business analysis can be used in various areas. They don't talk about banking domain, insurance domain, because these are general principles that can be applied across all domains. So all the templates that you're seeing, you can use the very same templates if you're working in a banking project or an insurance project or any other domain. So nothing is domain specific here. Clear on this part, guys? Okay, great.
Okay, so let's pause for now. I want you to revise requirement gathering techniques and come to the next class. We will continue with the chapter elicitation and collaboration. You will learn how to create prototypes and mockups and how to write functional